Do you think the goal in exercise and personal development in general is intensity, a harder workout, more motivation, a perfect streak, a dramatic transformation? When you look closely at people who actually change long term, something else stands out. They are predictable. They aren't exciting or extreme. You know they're going to train. You know they'll follow through. You know they won't disappear every time life gets difficult, emotional, inconvenient, or boring. That's what consistency really is. Predictable action repeated long enough to become part of your identity. And strangely, predictability is underrated because it doesn't come across as impressive in the moment. There's nothing glamorous about putting your shoes on again, doing another walk after dinner, getting a short workout in on a low energy day, repeating simple behaviors without emotional drama. But that's exactly how momentum is built. Hey there, it's me, Core, and you're listening to Exercising Consistency, from Fitness to Flourishing. Author Morgan Housel makes a related point in his book, Same as Ever. The most successful people in work and life are often the most predictable ones. We celebrate disruptors, but reliability is what actually reduces friction in relationships, careers, and habits. Being someone whose behavior others can count on and whose behavior you can count on is quietly one of the most valuable traits you can develop. Most people are chasing emotional intensity. What they actually need is behavioral stability. Because you know what fluctuates? Intensity, mood, energy, schedules, timing, motivation. Predictability survives fluctuations. That's why the people who make the biggest long-term changes often look boring from the outside. Their behavior stops depending on emotion. They remove the daily negotiation. They stop asking, do I feel motivated? Or is this the perfect workout? And start becoming the type of person who simply does the next rep. Instead of chasing a specific, unpredictable outcome, like a certain number on the scale or a certain revenue during the month, you aim for predictable behaviors that are within your control. A steady savings rate, a repeatable work routine, a workout you actually show up for. The system runs regardless of how you feel, which is the whole point. That shift changes everything psychologically. Every time you follow through predictably, you send your brain evidence. This is what we do now. Over time, your identity stops being built around intention and starts being built around proof. That's where self-trust comes from. You don't try to think yourself there. You don't watch more motivational content. You simply become behaviorally reliable. Training yourself to be predictable in your temperament, to not panic, to not abandon the plan when things go sideways, is the ultimate competitive advantage. Predictable habits create predictable reactions. Predictable reactions keep you in the game. The real damage of inconsistency is what you begin believing about yourself. Every cycle of start with energy and intensity, lose momentum, disappear, restart later, quietly teaches you that your own commitments are temporary. That's why constantly starting over feels exhausting. You're repeatedly breaking trust with yourself. Predictability repairs that. No need for perfection, just consistent repetition. A short workout still counts. A walk still counts. 5 minutes still counts, because the goal isn't proving how hard you can go occasionally. The goal is becoming someone whose actions stop being surprising. Instead, you become someone who moves even when life feels normal, who follows through even when the mood isn't there, whose habits become stable enough that they no longer require constant emotional fuel. Here is an important distinction. Consistency is not rigidity. The goal is to have predictable values and habits so that you are sturdy enough to be flexible when things shift. You're not locking yourself into a fixed routine that breaks under pressure. You're building a foundation stable enough to adapt when the circumstances change, which they will. That's real consistency. And once your behavior becomes predictable, results become predictable too. Maybe not immediately or dramatically, but inevitably. Because the body responds to repeated choices, and so does identity. Eventually, people look at someone who seems disciplined and assume they possess rare motivation or exceptional willpower. Usually, that's not true. More often, they simply became predictable long enough for momentum to compound. The person who trains 3 times a week for 2 years doesn't look exceptional on day 1, but on day 365, and certainly by day 730, the gap between them and someone who quit after 3 weeks becomes undeniable. That gap wasn't built on intensity. It was built on showing up when it didn't feel urgent, when it didn't feel exciting, when it felt like just another Tuesday. Predictability is the real goal, not intensity or perfection or endless motivation. When you become predictable in your exercise practice, you are not just building a stronger body. You're building a stronger self. You're training the part of you that shows up for difficult conversations, that persists through a challenging project, that doesn't abandon your values when circumstances get messy. The consistency you practice in a 30-minute workout becomes the consistency you practice in your career, your relationships, your personal growth. So here's something to ponder. What would change in your life if you became someone whose follow-through on commitments to yourself and others was genuinely predictable? If you'd like to find out, start your day 1 in the Act Score Challenge. That's it for today. Catch you next time.